I'm Natalie Chucks, 34, a senior marketing director at a tech startup in Seattle. People know me for my sharp wit, my designer wardrobe, and the kind of confidence that either intimidates or inspires, depending on who's watching. The antique pearl necklace snapped in my hands, sending dozens of tiny white spheres bouncing across the hardwood floor of the bridal suite like scattered raindrops. The sound was almost musical, a soft patter that seemed to echo in the sudden, deafening silence that followed. Maya's gasp cut through the air like a blade. Those were grandmother's pearls. I stared down at the broken strand in my palm, the silk thread hanging limp and useless. The clasp had been loose. I'd only been trying to help her fix it before the ceremony. But now, watching my sister's face crumple as she dropped to her knees to gather the scattered pearls, I realized I'd just destroyed the one thing that connected her to our late grandmother on the most important day of her life. Maya, I'm so sorry. I was just... Don't. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of a scream. She looked up at me from the floor, her wedding dress pooling around her like spilled milk, tears already threatening to ruin her carefully applied makeup. Just don't. Before I go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you're hooked already, a like and subscribe will keep these stories coming. The smell of gardenias from her bouquet seemed to intensify in the thick air, mixing with the faint scent of vanilla candles the wedding planner had lit to create ambience. Now the sweetness felt cloying, suffocating. I could hear the soft rustle of silk as the other bridesmaids shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between Maya and me like spectators at a tennis match. I can fix it, I said desperately, dropping to my knees beside her. There's a jewelry store downtown. They do emergency repairs. I can drive there right now and... With what time? Maya's laugh was hollow, bitter. The ceremony starts in 15 minutes, Natalie. 15 minutes. She held up a handful of pearls, some of them cracked from hitting the floor. These have been in our family for 4 generations. Grandmother wore them to her wedding. Mom wore them to hers. And now... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I watched her carefully place each recovered pearl into her palm, her movements precise despite her trembling hands. The photographer had stopped taking pictures, his camera hanging uselessly around his neck. Even the wedding planner, usually a whirlwind of efficient motion, stood frozen by the window. Maybe we could use a different necklace, suggested one of the bridesmaids tentatively. I have a simple gold chain in my purse. It's not the same. Maya's voice was flat, emotionless. She stood slowly, her dress rustling like autumn leaves. Nothing else would be the same. The weight of her words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. I could feel the other women's eyes on me, their silent judgment pressing against my skin. This wasn't just about a broken necklace anymore. This was about everything. Every argument we'd had growing up, every time I'd overshadowed her achievements, every moment when my presence had somehow made her feel smaller. Maya, please. Let me make this right. She turned to face me fully for the first time since the pearls had scattered. Her eyes, usually warm brown like our father's, were cold and distant. You want to make this right? Then leave. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Leave my wedding, Natalie. Just go. She walked to the mirror, her reflection showing a bride who looked nothing like the glowing, happy woman she'd been an hour ago. I can't do this with you here. Not after this. Not after everything. You don't mean that. But even as I said it, I could see in her reflection that she absolutely did. I've spent my entire life in your shadow, she said quietly, applying lipstick with hands that had finally stopped shaking. My engagement party, where you announced your promotion. My bridal shower, where you somehow became the center of attention with your stories about work. And now this. My wedding day, and you've managed to destroy the one thing that was supposed to connect me to the women who came before us. Each word was a knife, precise and cutting. The other bridesmaids had started to back toward the door, sensing this was becoming too private, too raw for witnesses. That's not fair, I whispered. Isn't it? Maya turned from the mirror, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Not anger, but exhaustion. I'm tired, Natalie. I'm tired of always being the sister who comes second. Just once, I wanted something that was completely mine. And I can't have that with you here. The finality in her voice made my chest tight. I looked around the room one last time, at the scattered pearls still glinting on the floor, at the bridesmaids who wouldn't meet my eyes, at my sister who had already turned back to the mirror as if I'd already gone. Fine, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. If that's what you want. I walked to the door, my heels clicking against the hardwood with each step. As I reached for the handle, I heard Maya's voice one more time, so soft I almost missed it. It is. The door closed behind me with a gentle click that somehow felt louder than a slam. I stood in the hallway of the historic mansion where Maya was getting married, surrounded by family photos and antique furniture that spoke of tradition and permanence. Through the tall windows, I could see guests taking their seats in the garden below, the string quartet tuning their instruments for the processional. I made it to my car before the tears came. Sitting in the driver's seat, still in my dusty rose bridesmaid dress, I watched through the windshield as the last few guests hurried toward the ceremony. Maya's ceremony, the one I was supposed to be part of. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Where are you? They're about to start. I turned off my phone and started the engine. As I drove away from the mansion, I caught one last glimpse of the garden in my rearview mirror. The guests were all seated now, waiting for the bride who would walk down the aisle without her sister by her side. 10 years. That's how long it had been since I'd driven away from Maya's wedding, leaving behind scattered pearls and a relationship that seemed just as broken. 10 years of silence, of missed holidays and birthdays, of learning to live with the space where my sister used to be. And now, staring at the text message that had appeared on my phone this morning, I realized that some things never really heal. They just learn to wait. Natalie, it's Maya. I know we haven't spoken, but I need to ask you something. It's about Emma's wedding. Can we talk? My hands were trembling again, just like they had when I'd held those broken pearls. But this time, I wasn't the one asking for forgiveness. This time, I was the one who got to decide whether to answer. The coffee shop Maya had chosen was deliberately neutral territory, a small place downtown that neither of us had ever been to before. I arrived 15 minutes early, partly out of habit and partly because I needed time to prepare myself for seeing her face again after a decade of silence. She walked in at exactly 2 p.m., and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Maya looked older, of course, but in the way that suggested wisdom rather than weariness. Her dark hair was shorter now, cut in a sleek bob that framed her face beautifully. She wore a simple navy dress and minimal jewelry, no pearls, I noticed with a sharp pang of memory. When her eyes found mine across the crowded cafe, I saw her hesitate for just a moment before walking over. Natalie. Her voice was carefully neutral, the way you might greet a business acquaintance. Maya. I stood awkwardly, unsure whether to hug her, or shake her hand, or simply sit back down. She made the decision for me by sliding into the chair across from mine, placing her purse on the table like a barrier between us. The silence stretched uncomfortably as we studied each other. I could smell her perfume, different from the one she'd worn at her wedding, something lighter and more mature. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the window caught the fine lines around her eyes, and I wondered if she was cataloging the changes in my face the same way I was cataloging hers. You look good, she said finally, and I couldn't tell if she meant it or if it was just something to fill the quiet. So do you. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, grateful for something to do with them. How's married life treating you? A shadow crossed her face so quickly I almost missed it. It's complicated. Before I could ask what that meant, she was reaching into her purse, pulling out her phone. I wanted to show you something. She swiped through photos until she found what she was looking for, then turned the screen toward me. The girl in the picture was breathtaking. She had Maya's warm brown eyes and delicate features, but there was something else there too, a spark of mischief that reminded me painfully of our father. She was wearing a graduation cap and gown, her smile radiant as she posed with a diploma. Emma, Maya said softly. She just graduated from Northwestern. Summa cum laude, double major in business and communications. She's beautiful. The words came out rougher than I'd intended. She looks like you did at that age. Everyone says she looks like you, actually. Maya's voice was quiet, especially when she gets that determined look in her eyes. The one that says she's about to take on the world whether it's ready or not. The compliment, if that's what it was, caught me off guard. I studied the photo more carefully, trying to see myself in this young woman I'd never met. My niece. The word felt foreign in my mind, weighted with years of absence and missed opportunities. She's getting married, Maya continued, taking the phone back. Next month. To a wonderful boy she met in college. David. He's studying to be a doctor, and he absolutely adores her. I waited for her to continue, sensing there was more. The way she was fidgeting with her wedding ring told me we were approaching the real reason for this meeting. The thing is, Maya said, her voice becoming smaller, Richard lost his job 6 months ago. The company he worked for went under, and he's been struggling to find something new. The economy, you know? And Emma's wedding. We'd been saving for years, but with Richard out of work. She trailed off, but I could see where this was heading. The coffee in my mouth suddenly tasted bitter. We can't afford it, she said in a rush. The wedding Emma's been dreaming of since she was little. The venue, the dress, the flowers, we've had to cancel almost everything. She's trying to be brave about it, talking about eloping or having something small in our backyard, but I can see how heartbroken she is. Maya's eyes were bright with unshed tears now, and I felt something twist in my chest. This was my sister, the same girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, asking me for help. But it was also the woman who had banished me from the most important day of her life. I know I have no right to ask, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I know what I said to you, what I did. But Emma doesn't know about any of that. She doesn't even know she has an aunt. And I hoped, maybe you could help us. Help her. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. I could feel my heart pounding against my ribs, a mixture of anger and hurt and something else I couldn't quite name. Maya was asking me to pay for her daughter's wedding, the daughter I'd never met because Maya had cut me out of their lives completely. How much? I asked, my voice carefully controlled. 50,000. The number came out like a confession. I know it's a lot, but Emma's always dreamed of having her wedding at the Fairmont. The same place where Richard and I. She stopped herself, probably remembering that I hadn't been at her wedding to see the venue. $50,000. It was a significant amount, but not one that would break me. My marketing career had been good to me, and I'd been careful with my investments. I could write that check without thinking twice about it. But that wasn't really the question, was it? You never told her about me, I said. It wasn't a question. Maya's face flushed. How could I? What was I supposed to say? You have an aunt who ruined my wedding day and then disappeared from our lives. I didn't disappear, Maya. You told me to leave. You said you never wanted to see me again. I was upset. I was 24 years old, and you just destroyed the most precious thing I owned on my wedding day. I said things I didn't mean. Didn't you? I leaned forward, feeling 10 years of suppressed hurt rising to the surface. Because it seemed pretty clear to me. You made your choice that day. And you made yours when you never tried to contact me afterward. Her voice was rising now, drawing glances from other customers. Not once, Natalie. Not when Emma was born, not when Dad had his heart attack, not when Dad had a heart attack. The words hit me like a physical blow. Maya's face went pale. You didn't know. Of course you didn't know. She pressed her hands to her temples. 3 years ago. He's fine now, but for a while we thought. Mom tried to find your number, but you'd changed it. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. I could hear the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversations around us, but it all seemed to be coming from very far away. Dad had almost died, and I hadn't known. I'd missed it completely, lost in my own stubborn pride. Is he okay? I managed to ask. He's okay, but he asks about you sometimes. Wonders where you are, what you're doing. Maya's voice was softer now. Mom does too. The weight of everything I'd missed, birthdays, holidays, Family dinners, my father's health scare, settled on my chest like a stone. I'd built a successful career, traveled the world, dated interesting men, but I'd done it all without the people who were supposed to matter most. I need to think about this, I said finally. Maya nodded, though I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Of course. I know it's a lot to ask. She started to gather her purse, preparing to leave, when I stopped her with a question that had been burning in my throat since she'd walked in. Why now, Maya? After 10 years of silence, why come to me now? She paused, her hand frozen on her purse strap. When she looked up at me, her eyes were filled with something that looked like regret. Because Emma deserves better than our mistakes, she said quietly. And because I've missed you. Every single day for 10 years, I've missed my sister. She stood to leave, then turned back one more time. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown until tomorrow. Room 412. If you decide if you want to help, or if you just want to talk more. I watched her walk away, her figure disappearing into the crowd on the sidewalk outside. My coffee had gone cold, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I sat there for another hour, staring at my reflection in the window and thinking about pearls scattered on a hardwood floor, about a niece I'd never met, and about the sister I'd lost to pride and stubbornness. When I finally stood to leave, I realized I'd already made my decision. The question wasn't whether I would help Emma. The question was whether Maya was ready to hear what I had to say about it. My phone buzzed as I walked to my car. A text from an unknown number. Aunt Natalie? Mom gave me your number. I'm Emma. I'd really love to meet you. I stared at the message for a long moment, then looked up at the hotel across the street where Maya was staying. Through one of the windows on the 4th floor, I could see a figure silhouetted against the light. She was watching me, waiting to see what I would do. I typed back to Emma, I'd love to meet you too. Then I walked across the street and into the hotel lobby, my heart pounding with each step toward the elevator. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like it lasted forever. My reflection in the polished steel doors showed a woman who looked far more confident than she felt. Designer blazer perfectly pressed, makeup still intact despite the emotional afternoon, but eyes that betrayed the storm raging beneath the surface. Room 412. I stood outside Maya's door for a full minute before knocking, my knuckles hovering inches from the wood as I rehearsed what I wanted to say. But when the door opened and I saw my sister's face, hopeful and terrified in equal measure, all my carefully planned words evaporated. You came, she said softly. I came. I stepped into the room, taking in the generic hotel decor and the suitcase open on the bed. Maya had always been a neat packer, I remembered. Everything folded precisely, shoes in protective bags. Some things never changed. I got a text from Emma. I said without preamble, you gave her my number. Maya's cheeks flushed. I hoped maybe if you met her, you'd understand why this is so important to me. You mean you hoped she'd charm me into writing a check? The words came out harsher than I'd intended, and I saw Maya flinch. But I was tired of dancing around the truth. We were both adults now, and if we were going to do this, we needed to be honest about what it was. That's not fair, Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? I moved to the window, looking down at the street where people hurried past with their own problems, their own family dramas. You cut me out of your life completely, Maya. For 10 years, I didn't exist to you. And now, when you need something, suddenly I'm family again. It's not like that. Then what is it like? I turned to face her, and something in my expression must have warned her that I was done with careful politeness. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you only remembered you had a sister when you needed $50,000. Maya sank onto the edge of the bed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, I need the money. Emma's wedding is in 4 weeks, and we've lost almost everything. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, they all require deposits we can't get back. Emma's trying to be brave about it, but I see her crying when she thinks no one's looking. Her voice broke slightly on the last words, and I felt my anger waver. But I wasn't ready to let her off the hook yet. That still doesn't explain why you think I owe you anything. I don't think you owe me anything. Maya's composure finally cracked, and she stood up abruptly. I know I have no right to ask. I know what I did to you was unforgivable. But this isn't about me, Natalie. It's about Emma. She's innocent in all of this. So was I, 10 years ago. The words hung between us like a blade. Maya's face went pale, and for a moment, she looked exactly like the young bride who had knelt on the floor gathering scattered pearls. You think breaking grandmother's necklace was innocent? She asked quietly. It was an accident, Maya. The clasp was loose. I was trying to help you fix it. But you were so determined to see malice in everything I did that you couldn't accept it might have been a mistake. It wasn't just the necklace. Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. It was everything. The way you always had to be the center of attention. The way you made my engagement party about your promotion. The way I what? Succeeded? Achieved things? I'm sorry my life made you feel small, Maya, but that was never my intention. Wasn't it? She looked up at me with eyes that held years of accumulated hurt. You always had to be the best at everything. The smartest, the most successful, the one everyone looked up to. And I was just Maya, the little sister who could never measure up. The pain in her voice hit me like a physical blow. I'd known Maya felt overshadowed sometimes, but I'd never realized how deep that wound went. How much my very existence had hurt her. I never meant to make you feel that way, I said, my anger deflating into something that felt dangerously close to guilt. I know. Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. That almost made it worse. You weren't even trying, and you still outshone me at everything. We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of 10 years of misunderstanding settling between us. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the hotel room. I'll pay for the wedding, I said finally. Maya's head snapped up, hope and disbelief warring in her expression. You will? But I have conditions. The hope in her eyes dimmed slightly. What kind of conditions? I moved to the chair by the window and sat down, needing the distance to say what came next. First, I want to meet Emma. Really meet her, not just a quick introduction. I want to know my niece. Of course. She wants to meet you too. Second, I want to be involved in the wedding planning. If I'm paying for it, I want to make sure it's done right. Maya nodded eagerly. Absolutely. Emma would love your input. She's always been interested in marketing and event planning. And third, I paused, knowing this was the big one. I want you to tell Emma the truth. About what happened between us. About why she's never met me before. The color drained from Maya's face. Natalie, I can't. She'll hate me. She might. But she deserves to know why her aunt has been absent from her life. And if we're going to have any kind of relationship going forward, any of us, it has to be built on honesty. Maya was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. When she finally looked up, her eyes were bright with tears. There's something else you need to know, she said. About why this wedding is so important to me. Why I'm willing to swallow my pride and ask you for help. I waited, sensing we were approaching something significant. Richard and I are getting divorced. The words hit me like a slap. What? We've been separated for 3 months. The job loss was just the final straw in a marriage that's been falling apart for years. Maya's voice was steady now, as if she'd practiced this confession. Emma doesn't know yet. We've been keeping up appearances until after the wedding because we didn't want to ruin it for her. I stared at my sister, trying to process this revelation. Maya, I'm so sorry. Don't be. It's been a long time coming. We married young, had Emma right away, and we just grew apart. But Emma adores her father, and this wedding is probably the last time our family will be together like this. I want it to be perfect for her. The pieces were starting to fall into place now. Maya's desperation, her willingness to reach out to me after 10 years of silence, the way she'd looked when she mentioned Richard earlier. Is that why you really called me? I asked. Because you're about to lose everything and you needed someone to save you? Maya's face crumpled. Maybe. I don't know. I've been so scared, Natalie. Scared about the divorce. Scared about how I'm going to support myself. Scared about Emma finding out her parents' marriage is a lie. And then the wedding costs started piling up, and I thought about you, about how you always knew how to fix things. For the first time since I'd walked into this room, I saw my sister clearly. Not the bride who had banished me from her wedding, not the woman who had cut me out of her life, but the scared little girl who used to come to me when she had nightmares. I can't fix your marriage, Maya, I said gently, but I can help with the wedding. She nodded, tears streaming down her face now. I know, and I know I don't deserve your help, but Emma does. I stood up and moved to the bed, sitting down beside my sister for the first time in 10 years. The mattress dipped under our combined weight, and Maya leaned against me slightly, the way she used to when we were children. We're going to do this right, I said. Emma's going to have the wedding of her dreams. But afterward, you and I are going to have a long conversation about the last 10 years. About Dad's heart attack, about Mom, about all the things we've missed. Okay, Maya whispered. And Maya? I missed you too. Every single day. She turned to look at me, and for a moment, I saw the sister I remembered. The one who used to braid my hair and steal my clothes and tell me secrets in the dark. There's one more thing, she said. Emma wants to meet you tomorrow. She's driving down from Chicago. She said she has something important to ask you. What kind of something? Maya smiled through her tears, and for the first time since I'd walked into this room, it looked genuine. She wants to know if you'll walk her down the aisle. Since things are complicated with her father right now, she thought maybe her aunt could do it instead. The request hit me like a lightning bolt. Walk Emma down the aisle. Give away a niece I'd never met at a wedding I was paying for, while my sister's marriage fell apart around us. Will you? Maya asked. Will you walk her down the aisle? I thought about scattered pearls and broken promises, about 10 years of silence, and the price of pride. I thought about a young woman I'd never met who wanted her aunt to give her away on the most important day of her life. Yes, I said. I'll walk her down the aisle. Maya's smile was radiant, transforming her face completely. She's going to be so happy. You're going to love her, Natalie. She's smart and funny and determined, just like you were at her age. Just like we both were, I corrected. As the sun set outside the hotel window, casting the room in golden light, I realized that some things could be repaired after all. Not easily and not without cost, but with enough love and forgiveness, even the most broken relationships could find their way back to wholeness. The wedding was in 4 weeks. Emma would have her perfect day, Maya would have her family back together one last time, and I would finally meet the niece who had been missing from my life for 22 years. It wasn't the ending I'd expected when I'd walked into that coffee shop this afternoon. But maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning we all needed. My phone buzzed with another text from Emma. I can't wait to meet you tomorrow. Mom says you're going to help with the wedding. Thank you for giving me the fairy tale I've always dreamed of. I showed the message to Maya, and we both smiled through our tears. No, I said softly. Thank you for giving me back my family. Outside, the city lights were beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk, and somewhere in Chicago, a young woman was probably planning what she wanted to say to the aunt she'd never met. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, difficult conversations, and the complex work of rebuilding relationships that had been broken for far too long. But tonight, for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't alone. Tonight, I had my sister back.